Welcome to Lesson 117, Adding and Subtracting Decimals. Today we're going to talk about how to add decimals, subtract decimals, and solve problems that involve adding and subtracting decimals. I put together 4 steps to help you remember how to add and subtract decimals. Now the thing is, when you're writing them down, make sure to write the steps over here and then do your examples over here. I will be flipping back and forth between your notes and your flip chart to make sure that you're getting everything written down in the correct manner. So please make sure to follow the directions, as it's really important that you know what the steps mean, so that way when you go back to your notes to help you with any practice work, you're not confused. One of the biggest mistakes that students can make is when we look at a whole number, we forget that whole numbers, even though it isn't there, whole numbers still have a decimal. So if you think about $9, okay, I can write $9 like this, or I can write $9 like this. When we have a whole number, that decimal always goes behind the last number. Okay, so that's something we really want to remember. You might even want to write that in your notes somewhere. So if you just take your pencil and write the decimal always goes behind the whole number. Okay. So when we're going through this, the reason that that is so important is because of step 1. Step 1 is to line up the decimals. Now, if you don't have a decimal, you have to remember where the decimal goes. So in this case with the 9, the decimal goes behind it, so we would line the 9 up with the rest of the 9s from the other whole numbers. Okay, so we line up the decimals when we're adding and subtracting. The next thing that we do is we fill in the blank spaces with zeros. Okay, so what that means is, like with this 9, we put in a decimal and then 2 zeros. If we don't put in the decimal, we end up with 900, and that's incorrect. We don't have $900, we have $9. Now notice here, this goes out 2 places, the rest of them only go out 1. So we place zeros in those columns that don't have any other numbers, just like we did when we were comparing and ordering decimals. Okay, so we add that decimal to the whole number and then fill in the blank spaces with zeros. So again, this is what it looked like with, without, or without and with. So now when you're writing this down, we're going to go back to your notes here. So the first thing that you would do is show how you line up with the decimals. So you can even say 1. So 9, 7, 9 and 3/10, 9 and 45/100. Then I would even put maybe a line underneath it. And then step 2, I know it's repeating writing this, but it's actually going to be very helpful for you, because the more you practice it, the better you'll get. Okay, and then steps 3 and 4 you can do all in one spot. Okay, but I want you to make sure to separate it like this, so that way you know, okay, this is how I did step 1. This is what it meant for step 2, and then 3 and 4. Now, step 3 is a really tough one, so pay attention. You have to add or subtract. Now, the reason I say add or subtract is because the directions for adding and subtracting decimals is the same. It just depends on which operation you're using. In this case, we're using addition. So now we're going to add. When I add, I get 5 plus all the zeros is 5. 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 4 is 14. 4, carry the 1. 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 36. So this should actually be 37. I apologize. Okay, so now we have our addition completed. And the last thing we're going to do is bring the decimal straight down. So see how all these decimals line up? We bring that decimal straight down and place it into our answer. Okay, so in here you can write, you can do the addition So 5, 4, carry the 1, 37, and then I would just show that you bring the decimal straight down. Okay, so we have a couple examples here. I'm going to do these first two examples with you, and then you're going to try the rest of them on your own. So let's follow our steps. The first thing we need to do is we need to line up the decimals. So in this case, 1 and 8/10 is going to go on top, and 0 and 2/10 is going to go on bottom. Notice I have the decimals lined up, the whole numbers lined up, so we're lining up our place values. 8 plus 2 is 10, carry the 1, it's 2, bring your decimal straight down. My answer here is 2 and 0/10. Now, adding and subtracting decimals is done the same way as you would if you were using just whole numbers. Again, the important part is making sure that you line up your decimals, you line up your place values. If you don't, and let's say that by accident you lined up the 2 and the 1, now your answer is all kinds of jumbled and you don't know where to put your decimal. Do I bring it straight down here? Here, you want to make sure to line up those decimals. Take your time and be careful. All right, again, we line up our decimals. Because 4 is a whole number, we know that the decimal goes behind it, right here. So in this case, the 0 is going to line up with the 4, okay? Decimal, and then the 7 goes behind. Step 2 tells us that we need to add zeros in any blank spaces. So we're going to add a 0 right here, because we can do that because this decimal is here. And now we subtract like normal. We can't do 0 minus 7. Okay, if we have no markers, I can't take 7 away from you. So we're going to borrow from the 4, and it becomes a 3. Okay, carry that over. 10 minus 7 is 3. 3 minus 0 is 3. And we bring that decimal straight down. So in this case, our answer is 3 and 3/10. What I would like you to do now is I want you to pause and try the rest of them on your own. You can do one of two things. You can try one, come back and check your answer, but note that all of these will be completed when you come back. So either try them all or come back and make sure that you're just checking one at a time. All right, so if you take a look here, I put in red all of the places where we had to add a decimal and add zeros, just to make sure that you remember that we have to add those zeros in. Okay, in this case, again, we have a 5, and the decimal goes behind the 5. Right, so we had 4 and 92/100 plus 5, which gives us 9 and 92/100. If you don't line up those decimals, you end up with a very incorrect answer. If you ended up with 4 and 97/100 as your answer, you did not line up your decimals correctly. I'll give you a minute to check your answers, and then I'm going to go on to the next problem. If you have any questions, please make sure to write them down or post them to Edmodo so that way we can go over them in class tomorrow. Alright, so to post onto Edmodo tonight, you are actually going to do this word problem on your own. I will go through it with you and help you find the important information because we're still practicing that, but you are going to actually do the math by yourself. I want to see how well we can dissect our word problems. So George started the week with $105 in his bank account. He spent $37.35 on dinner and a movie on Tuesday. On Friday, he earned an extra $25.30 for mowing his neighbor's lawn. How much money does he have now? Right, so what's important is that he started with $105. Does it matter that it was in his bank account? No. Does it matter what day of the week it was? No. It just matters that he started with $105. He spent $37.35. Does it matter that he spent it on dinner and a movie or that he spent it on Tuesday? No, it does not. Not in this case. But it does matter that he earned $25.30 for mowing his neighbor's lawn. Now, does it matter that he earned it by mowing the lawn? No. These are all keywords here. Spent, earned. Okay, because spent means that it went out of our bank account. So spent actually tells us that we need to use subtraction. Earned, so when you earn money, it goes into your bank account or into your pocket. So if you said we're using addition, you are correct. Now it's your choice. I think it would be too difficult to write a problem that looks like 105 minus this plus this. That's too many operations at once. I would separate it into two separate problems so that way you can make sure that you got the correct answer. Make sure to double check your answer. I will be checking that you have work shown for this. So if you do end up wanting to check your answer with a calculator, that's fine. But if your work doesn't match your answer, we are going to have to make sure to sit down and go through this because you cannot use a calculator on your final test. Right? And I know there's a lot of you that are saying, we forgot. It's very important to highlight the question, how much money does he have now? So that tells us what we're looking for. We're looking for how much does he have even though he spent $37.75 and then earned $25.30. Okay, make sure to post this answer to Edmodo. Don't forget to use your label. In this case, it is the $sign. And again, if you have any questions, make sure to write them down or post them to Edmodo so we can go over them in class tomorrow.